Despite being a fitness coach, I have never once told the story of the origins of my method. That method being the Ancestor maxing method, okay? It's a simple name, and it's simple for a reason, because it is built entirely around copying what our ancestors did to max out your health, your testosterone, your well-being, the enjoyment of the lifestyle, and everything that comes with that. And obviously your physique and fitness. So in this video, guys, I want to tell you about the story of how I came about my method, what made me realize it was the right method, why it beats carnivore, why it beats keto, fucking vegetarian, right? Whole foods, like in general, it beats all of those things, especially even the primal diet, right? I'm going to tell you about that. So it's a lovely day for it. I'm actually in a deer park right now, so who knows, we might get surprised by some deer today, but I haven't seen any since being here. So yeah, I mean, if you guys don't already know me, I'm an online fitness coach, and I work with men who are trying to maximize their testosterone. And the way you do this through my method is by basically prioritizing foods that have been around since the dawn of time, right? The stuff that we thrive off and the stuff that your body truly wants. Hence why I call it Ancestor maxing, because that's what our ancestors would have had access to, and they would have been living this lifestyle without actually trying. You know, I'm talking about red meat, root vegetables, not trying to force a plant-based diet, because no one did back in the day, because it went against your instincts, and those instincts exist for a reason. Plants taste like shit mostly for a reason, okay? And that is essentially the building blocks of it. But in this video, I'm gonna talk about why and how I came about this method. It's an interesting story. So for those of you who don't know, you may have seen my other video on my channel where I talk about how me being surrounded by 30-year-old men at 16 when I was working construction helped me wake up to health. Because, long story short, drinking loads of alcohol at 16, beer, being around drugs, smoking 10 cigarettes a day, eating takeaways, all of that stuff. And the fact that I was exposed to that so early on made me realise and probably pushed me towards the other end of the spectrum, which is where I'm at now. But that wasn't the moment where everything changed, ironically. You think it would be, but it actually took several years of realisation and hard lessons after that. So what happened, right? After I stopped working that job, I moved to MMA, and my original plan was to be a professional cage fighter, MMA fighter. That was my set goal at the time, right? And I went about it very quick. So back in 2022, which is 4 years ago, I joined an MMA gym, started training, started doing jiu-jitsu sessions once, twice a week, then moved on to MMA. Within a couple of weeks, I was basically doing it full force, training 4 to 5 times a week, thinking, right, I'm doing this. Like, I just want to fight. That's what I'm destined to do. I want to do it. And within a year, I had my first fight. I won by a first round TKO. And after that, I went on to have 4 more fights. And I won 1 more and lost 3 more, unfortunately. That is some wind. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure the camera doesn't fall over. We should be good. I've put my bottle behind it so it doesn't fall over. But yeah, that's what happened during my MMA journey, right? And that was all within, so after the first year of training, those 5 fights were after that first year, so within the second year. It happened very quick. And what it taught me, right, the main lesson I learned during that period of fighting was that more training does not fix your testosterone. It does not fix the way you feel and the way you look. Because I was training more than anyone else, right? I was training like 6 times a week. I was lifting. I was doing all of this output. And on paper, I should have been in amazing shape. I should have felt amazing. I should have been living the fucking, like, the top quality life of a man. Because, you know, you think with all that training, I'd be like a gladiator. But I wasn't. I was horrendously skinny fat back then. I had very little muscle mass. I felt like crap. You know, I had like a lot of brain fog, even like anxiety. And I think that leaked into my fights, where my mindset wasn't good because my testosterone was low and naturally my competitive drive wasn't as high, which, you know, I don't know why anyone would disagree with this, but that affects your fighting ability a lot. You know, why do you think people take steroids? It's not just the physical advantage, it's the mental edge it gives you. And that's when I realised one day, it was actually after like my 4th fight. So just before my final fight that I had. And I thought, how do I get my levels up naturally? Because I was almost 100% sure, I hadn't actually done a blood test back then, but I was 100% sure the reason why I felt like crap was because of my testosterone levels. Because I sort of knew a bit about it. You've seen stuff online. It was around that time where Tate was popping up a lot, so I was watching a lot of Andrew Tate videos, and he was talking about it, and it just sort of came into my mind. And I had a hunch about it, and it turned out to be completely true. And funnily enough, a lot of you watching this have probably had that exact same hunch about your own levels. You may not have got them tested, but you think, something doesn't feel right. My energy isn't right. I don't feel very confident. My gains in the gym are pretty slow. It's got to be testosterone. What else could it be? And I would put good money on it that that is exactly what it is. So I started doing some research. I watched a lot of Eddie Abu videos back then, tried out the carnivore diet, and I even went through a phase before my last fight of training carnivore. So I was training MMA, right, which is intense training on the carnivore diet, and I felt good, believe it or not. I felt mental clarity, I felt energetic, although the energy was very, I don't know what the word is, but it was very short-lasting. So I would have good energy overall, but when it came to intense training sessions, it would fade very quick. So I'd be energetic overall. I'd be energetic doing low output activities. But as soon as it ramped up to intense pad work or anything like that, it would just go like that. And that's because you haven't got any glycogen in your system, right? I don't know why people are obsessed with the carnivore diet. I clocked it very quick. You know, as humans, we have carbs for a reason. It's there to boost your performance. It's a sign of abundance. People say, oh, our ancestors never ate carbs. I mean, one, they did. And two, if they could eat more of them, they would, and they would serve a purpose. The problem is when you overuse them or you use the wrong carbs, right? That's when it becomes an issue, especially when combined with an 80-20 type diet, where you're also eating processed junk and your insulin sensitivity is all over the place. And that's when I realized a lot of these methods don't work, because it doesn't take into account the fact that most people ain't got a clue what they're doing. Most people are going to eat some steak and eggs a few times a week, call themselves carnivore, and then go and eat processed food on top of that, or drink like energy drinks or fizzy drinks with sweeteners in and all this stuff which disrupts your insulin balance, your hormones, and nothing really works. And that's when I also tried just doing a whole food diet and eating whole foods, eating carbs. And this is when I saw the biggest change in my testosterone levels. But this is where things get interesting, because I actually fixed my testosterone, but I didn't fix my physique and what I truly wanted to fix, which was the way I looked and the results in the gym. And this is where there's a bit of a two-step method to this. It's not just fixed testosterone, everything's good. It's fixed testosterone, builds the foundation of, you know, your hormones and everything else, and then you can build everything on top of that. So after my 5th fight, I didn't go into that fight carnivore. I trained carnivore for a bit, ditched it, went back to basically eating what I was eating before. Not very good food. After the weigh-in, before the fight, I drank some protein shakes and stuff. I felt bloated. I felt pretty crap. And I went into the fight with stomach issues, as I did with most of my fights. And it definitely played a part in it, not to make excuses, but that was a big distraction during the fights. And hey, maybe I've got a sensitive stomach. I don't know. Some people can eat processed food and seem to digest it better than others, right? But it doesn't matter. Even if you can get away with it, you're still going to have other issues with your skin, issues with your hormones. So the stomach thing for me was just, if anything, a blessing, because it helped me wake up to it quicker. So yeah, I went into that fight, ate my normal diet, felt like crap. After that fight, I was like, you know what? I need to earn. I want to do something else. And that's when I got into fitness coaching. Although it was a very gradual journey from there. I did security work after that. I did delivery driver work. And it wasn't until the past, just over a year that I've actually been coaching. It was a long journey, and it was fun. Right? But it took a while to know how to make content that actually appeals to you guys and stuff. So yeah, after that, I started moving to the whole food diet, and I did see some good results, right? And this is when I properly started lifting as well. Even though I was lifting during my training for fighting, I was only lifting once, maybe twice a week. And it wasn't proper lifting. It was high volume, strength and conditioning type stuff. for fighting specifically. It wasn't like really like pushing my muscles, because when I first got into the gym after that 5th fight, I could not even bench press 80 kg. I could maybe do 1 rep right at a push. You know, I was weak, especially in my push. The posterior chain has always been strong. I could always like full stack a seated cable row on most of the gym machines, which is, I think, quite crazy for my body weight. But that comes from the years of grappling and stuff and never really working the push muscles. But anyway, I digress. So after that, I went to the whole foods diet and I started to feel a lot better. And that's when I first noticed the noticeable increase in my testosterone levels. Excuse me. But I made a few mistakes back then. So the first mistake I made was way too much fasting. I used to have my last meal maybe 7 o'clock, 7 p.m, sometimes 6 p.m, and then I wouldn't eat the next day until 3 p.m. because I was working my delivery job in the morning. I thought, oh, I'll just fast through it. And then sometimes if I wasn't fasting, I'd still make mistakes. I'd go to the shop and buy meal deals because I think, oh, well, it's whole food, it's wraps, it's chicken, it's whole food, without really checking the ingredients, right? So that was another mistake. So there was that. And then with the fasting, I was fasting like 20, 22 hours every day. And it was ridiculous, right? Which you think, oh, more fasting is better. And that's what I thought. And it isn't. It tanks your hormones a lot. You know, it will spike your cortisol. It will make your metabolism slower. It will ruin your energy levels in a way. And it's just not good overall. Bear with me. I just need to check my phone to make sure it's not overheated. Looks like we're good. Sorry, I've recorded a video before and then the phone just overheated halfway through and stopped recording, which was a flipping, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. So anyway, that was that. And yeah, with the fasting, I was holding on to stubborn fat and losing a lot of muscle mass, feeling like crap, thinking this isn't right. And it wasn't. So, and the other thing as well, even though I was fasting so much, I wasn't losing fat in the right way, because I wasn't aware of my quantities. So after the fast, I would eat a fuckload of calories, because believe it or not, even on the whole food diet, you can eat a lot of calories, right? And that's what I did. I would eat a ribeye, I would eat 20% full fat beef mince sometimes, I would eat buttered dates, maybe 10 of them, I'm not even joking, right, with big chunks of butter. I'd eat dark chocolate, I'd eat fruit, you know, I would have loads of eggs. It was a lot of food, right? I would easily hit my maintenance, if not a surplus, during that fasting window, thinking, well, it's whole food, what can go wrong? I've always had a big appetite, and I just stayed the same. But it wasn't good. And then sometimes I was in the deficit and it was a mess, right? No structure at all. And that was one of the biggest things I thought about Ancestor Maxing was structure, because our ancestors would have had structure. They would have ate at similar times every day. And for reasons that were out of their control, they probably would have ate the same meals with the same size quantities, and they would have been very active. So naturally, they would have stayed lean a lot easier. And they weren't obsessed over fasting windows. Maybe they fasted a bit longer naturally because of certain things, but a lot of the time they actually did eat breakfast, believe it or not. And yeah, I'm talking about like medieval time ancestors. I'm not talking about cavemen. I think it's actually silly to try and recreate that, because we've come a long way from that since then. And raw meat, yes, has benefits, but cooked meat also has benefits. And I like to enjoy what I eat. I don't particularly want to eat raw meat. It's not enjoyable. So yeah, let me just some water quick. Sorry, bear with me 2 seconds. I'm trying to do this video as raw as possible, so this is probably going to be in the video. I'm not going to bother editing it out. I sat in the sun and it's hot. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, got some salt in there as well. I always make sure I put salt in my water so it actually hydrates me properly. So yeah, so I started to figure out the structure of things. And that's when I started to really see results. So after I implemented the structure, I started following that. Suddenly I felt a lot better. And ironically, my first testosterone test I ever did was during that time where I was doing that long fasting window after my last fight. And that's when it came back as 14.4 nmol, or that's about 400 nanograms, right? Which is low. And when I started following a structure, started actually quantifying what I was eating more frequently, but also eating the right foods, eating in a very slight deficit while building muscle. Because when you have better hormones, you can build muscle while losing fat. I've got another video talking about that on my channel. Go and check it out. Then I did another test about 2 months later, and I had doubled my testosterone levels. Right, I went from 14 to 26, so almost doubled. And I felt noticeably different, but it wasn't like an overnight thing. So I didn't just wake up like, oh, I feel different today. It was over time, and I started to feel really confident. My mental sharpness, like making a decision beforehand, would have been, oh, do I do this? Do I do this? It would have been a lot of brain fog. Whereas when it came to making decisions at this point, I was like, no, like this is what we're doing. If I was in a room full of people, I would speak out without thinking, without worrying about the consequences of what I say, right? And I think that also helped my content grow because I stopped overthinking what I was making on my videos. And life just started to go upwards from that point. And that was, I think, about a month after that, I had a conversation with my mentors at the time, and we came up with the name together of Ancestor Maxing. Because we were like, what do I actually do? Well, I'm thinking about what our ancestors do. I'm taking elements of what they do. I'm not calling it the primal diet because it's not primal, right? I'm not eating red meat and, eating gone off beef, like steaks and stuff for the fermented benefits and all that bullshit. I'm not doing any of that. I'm eating things that our ancestors would have had access to. Whole foods, real food, stuff that nurtures your testosterone levels, eating in a rhythm and a structure that makes sense, that is also enjoyable, right? Because I do want to tap into that human instinct of being able to stick to something and making it sociable, enjoyable, right? And there is absolutely like a sociable element to this diet. If anything, it's more sociable. Steak, you can cook beef mince, you can use sauces if they're like made from whole foods, you can eat ice cream, you can eat dates and butter, dark chocolate. There's so much you can do, right? It's not restrictive at all. Even going to restaurants is okay, right? As long as you choose the right foods there and avoid some of the ultra processed bullshit like the buns and stuff like that. I went to a kebab restaurant with my girlfriend the other day, and I had lamb's liver as a starter, and then a nice lamb shish kebab, right, with some rice. It's whole food. So yeah, obviously you've got to be careful of seed oils. I would recommend telling them you're allergic, so they cook it in either butter, ghee, olive oil, or nothing at all. And I'll say allergic rather than preference, because preference, they might just ignore you. But sometimes you don't know, right? And that's the risk you take. But at the same time, another thing with the Ancestor Maxing method is you're trying to avoid stress. Too many guys stress the fuck out about trying to be as optimal as possible. They panic and think, I need to get everything from the butchers. I need to eat raw meat. I need to do all this stuff. And it's like, you don't need to stress about that. The stress is making your health worse. That Brian Johnson guy, right? The scientist who stresses constantly about his health and ironically ends up more unhealthy. Part of it is to do with his methods, I would think, because he eats a very highly modified plant-based diet and he really looks unhealthy. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, he focuses so much on his health that it stresses him out and his health becomes worse. Our ancestors weren't doing that. They were living life. They were close to God. They didn't have social media. They didn't have all the scaremongering. They just lived and ate whole food. And I wish I could put this message across without scaremongering. Unfortunately, I can't. Right? I have to scaremonger to some extent because you guys have to be awake to it all and you have to be aware. Let me just check my phone again, make sure it's not overheating because it's getting hot. No, we're good. We are good. So yeah, I wish I could do it without scaremongering, but unfortunately I do need to. And that's that. So it was over the space of about a year and a half that I came to the conclusion of Ancestor Maxing. So last fight was, July 2024. Started doing the whole foods approach after that. Too much fasting. Figured all that out come the end of that year. And then come January 25, started implementing. Did my first blood test. Come April, realised my testosterone was high. Was working with a mentor. Called it the Ancestor Maxing method. And here we are just over a year later. And yeah, I've got clients who are seeing amazing results right now. Right, I've seen amazing results. I'm sitting here tanning, feeling great. It's a random Wednesday. I haven't actually done a testosterone test recently, but I would not be surprised if it's higher because I just continue to feel better. And ultimately, that is the metric you're tracking. As much as blood work makes sense, track how you feel, right? Compare how you feel. Write down how you feel day to day and write it in a journal. And then compare how you feel from 2 months ago. You know, that's what matters ultimately. If your mindset doesn't change, then what does it matter, right? If you don't change the way you feel, your physique doesn't change, it doesn't matter at all. And there's so much to it, right? Because of Ancestor Maxing, you live a low stress life, you enjoy the lifestyle, it fully changes you, and that's what happened to me. I went from this really like try-hardy kind of guy doing MMA, training all the time, thinking about my health, to now just being relaxed, training 3 times a week, you know, running a business online, helping men get in shape, enjoying life and not even trying. You know, I watch people online trying so hard with their diet, and I'll speak to guys trying so hard, and then I'm like, I'm sitting here eating ice cream and eating steak and loving it, right? Yeah, I'm aware of my calories, but I don't track. I'm just aware. I don't overeat. Eventually, your body's hunger signals tell you, but you've got to learn to get to that point. So, yeah, and it took that, right, through filtering, through the carnivore diet, through doing too much fasting, to finding the sweet spot. And essentially what I would sum up Ancestor Maxing as is a sweet spot of dieting. You're taking all the benefits of those trendy diets, the carnivore diet, the keto diet, everything, the whole food diet, primal in a way, right? You're still using raw honey, beef liver, stuff like that. And you're taking all the good stuff and removing all of the bad stuff. So, you know, you've got a basic combination of everything. Even the benefits of an ultra-processed food diet, the benefit is that it's enjoyable to an extent, right? You could call it that. This is enjoyable because it becomes your life. You learn to love Greek yogurt bowls and maple syrup and fruit and dark chocolate and all that stuff to the same extent that you would have loved chocolate back in the day. I'm being deadly serious. You know, you try eating 100% dark chocolate and raw honey and buttered dates and ice cream. You won't feel the need to cheat after that. So that's how I discovered my method, and it transforms you as a man. You no longer have to stress. Your health is figured out, and there you go. So yeah, I'm going to draw this video to an end because I'm worried this phone is going to overheat and cut me off in like a really good moment. But it's a beautiful day. As you can see, I'm going to, let me extend this a little bit. As you can see, like that behind me is like a big manor house. And there's this lovely field around here. You know, the surroundings around here are really beautiful. It's a lovely park. And, hey, like, oh shit, that's going to fall over. Hang on. Yeah, there would have been a time, you know, years ago, that's going to fall because it's getting windy, where I would have been scared to take my shirt off, even just out here, because of the way I looked. And now I know I look good, so it doesn't bother me. And that is an extraordinary feeling, because my ultimate goal was to increase my testosterone. It was to figure everything out, but it was ultimately to get in good shape, to lose a skinny fat physique. And what good is it having, you know, more testosterone, fasting windows, a better diet if your physique isn't going to change? What good is it? It's pointless. So, yeah. At the end of the day, the goal is to look good, feel good, and have faith in what you're doing. And if you haven't got any of those, if one of those boxes is missing, then your method isn't going, like, it isn't taking you anywhere. It isn't the right method. You need a method that's really going to tick all those boxes. And the Ancestor Maxing method is the one, right? So if you've been following me for a while and you like what I do, there's a link below to apply to work with me one-to-one. I am selective about who I work with because you're going to be investing more time, more effort, more money into yourself than you probably ever have. But the goal here is that you are changing your life. And the men that I work with are 100% serious about doing this. And when you do it, you are crossing over a barrier. There is a barrier to entry. And when you overcome that barrier, you become a new person. This isn't tracking your calories, tracking your macros. This is a whole lifestyle change. And if you want to become that man that lives like that has a great physique, high testosterone, eats the right stuff, shows up for himself, can be consistent, then what are you waiting for, right? The link's there. Make a move on yourself. And if you're coming from YouTube, make sure to drop my Instagram a follow, which is where I post the majority of my content. I'll also put a link to that in the description. So yeah, guys, I hope you found this video interesting, and I will see you on the next one.